All right. So we are back here live with the wonderful folks from over at GM Pilot. We have Alonzo and Cijoy on with us. Chad, what are we doing today?
Well, we're going to be looking at a report and seeing how these guys do their thing and save operators all of that labor savings. Can't wait to
That's
see it
right.
myself.
That is right. Okay, so now I'm totally on board. I remember. So you guys are running this offer for the RFDC show coming up November in Vegas, right?
That's right.
Um, Yeah, so okay, but Chad said you have this report, and what it is really it's an analysis of their labor, but it's much more detailed in the sense that most labor numbers get rounded out, and a lot of money's left in the margin. And I guess you guys have some really awesome things based on the technologies and the processes you've developed that recover this money in a whole new way, where they're actually finding things that they would never be able to access just by merit of just human ability. Is that true?
That's right.
All right. Now, I might be going a little bit too deep on this, so I want to let you guys actually take over and share this message of what you do. So, I think you have one of the reports you're going to walk us through as if as if we're one of your clients, or actually for some of your clients' information. What are we going to see here? Let's take us through this.
So we put a historical report, like you said, together. This is a real client, but we changed the names to protect the innocent.
Ah,
Um, and so this is what we're doing for RFDC. We're running these historical reports. They go back. I think this one. So Joy, how far did we go
I think
back on
about
this one? 15 months,
15, 18
maybe
months.
18,
Yeah.
18 maybe. Mm-hmm. We could go back further. It's really up to the client. And you said it perfectly, Michael. The idea is to give operators the data that they need to really understand where they can drill down and save labor dollars. So the value of this report is, automatic. Even though it's free, you could take this report and start honing away hours just by what you read in here.
And Alonzo, what did they have to give you so that you could produce this report
hmm,
for them?
that's a good question.
Yeah. So
So
Joy.
all they really have to provide is either access to their scheduling system and their POS, or we've got an extract template, a very simple Excel with two tabs. Just fill out all the data for all the locations that we're going to analyze, and then we'll take it from there.
It's really easy. And that's kind of an ongoing theme. We want to not add work to the plates of people that are already um, moving and shaking and have plenty to do. So we do our best just to come in and do our work in behind the scenes and just generate great results. And so the first thing that someone will see on the report is this big summary of the entire timeline. So what you're looking at here is Hotter Chicken's monthly average of UPT. Now, UPT is a term that we use. It's called unplanned paid time. And I'll get
Oh,
into what those categories are, but in general, it's exactly what it sounds like. And we differentiate unplanned paid time from overtime because what Sojourn and I joke about is that UPT is the silent killer.
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, it's where time theft lives too, right?
absolutely. Yeah. And we're really looking at minutes that combine into hours that combine into, 498 hours average monthly UPT. So what you're seeing here is for this client, on average, each
hmm
month, they're 498 hours of UPT,
And
unplanned paid time.
and this is across how many stores or
This
locations? Is
is
one? Is it?
this is one location.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
great
Okay.
question.
Okay. And then so
Yeah.
if I multiply that times, my prevailing wage, minimum wage, I'm sure that number probably pops up, or that's clearly a logical conclusion. But then almost said a bad word. Sorry. Just got me excited. But what if I have 40 stores, 50 stores, 100 stores? That multiplier then is just insanely, significant.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that remark is kind of indicative of what we hear from people when we present these reports. So for this report in particular, we said give us your best restaurant, your best
hmm
run restaurant. And they said, well, look, you're not going to find much, but here you go.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer. And look, I think it'll be helpful if we jump into some of the actual reports, so you can see where that UPT is coming from.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to add to that first summary page, Cijoy?
No, I think it's very self-explanatory. We pride ourselves on trying to make everything we do very easy for a general manager to understand, and for every document to stand on its own, so we don't have to walk you through everything, but we're happy to. Like Alonzo said earlier, even if you never talk to us again, you've got this, you know where the bodies are buried, and you could do something about it. And there's our intention is to be the GM's best friend, and when we do that,
Uh-huh.
that's where the magic happens.
Love it. So
Mhm.
you're literally producing something here that you typically do for a client, for anybody that's going to RFDC, that they can look at this and really get a sense of how valuable this is for
Yeah,
their business.
absolutely.
So either
Exactly.
way, they win. Love it.
No. So I'll just show you the breadth of this report is quite large. We're not going through all these pages, but
Mm-hmm.
it just speaks to the value that people are getting with this report. So I'm going to jump into one of the daily reports. So each day, our managers receive a breakdown of the
Mm-hmm.
previous day's labor. And what you see here is this will be in the subject line, and you'll see right away 8.97 hours of UPT. Now, their regional manager, area manager will also get this. So, they're like, okay, well, let me dig in because I'm going to get some questions asked because I got
Right.
8.97 hours of UPT. And so, again, this is an email. This isn't, a dashboard that they got to go dig into and click this and click that. It's all tailor made to exactly the information specs that they want. And you start to go through it. So here are the UPT categories. So these are overworked shifts. So this is anyone that worked over the scheduled amount of time. So you see here, Seth, 18 minutes over. Okay, let me dig in. Okay, well, so he was 19 minutes late. He was a minute late clocking in, 19 minutes late clocking out. I see that Magdalena and Billy were managers, so let me talk to them about how they're cutting people. Because
Mm.
if Seth's done at a certain time, we want Seth cut and gone at
Right.
that time, right? And 19 minutes is too much. Again, 29 minutes. So here's Billy. He's a manager, but at this particular location, managers get paid hourly, so that's why
Mm-hmm.
we're including in the report. 20 minutes late. So you start to see, okay, it's 20 minutes, 19 minutes. Okay, gosh, now we're already
Yep.
at 39 minutes. What's important too is as you go through, you're looking at who's the manager on duty. So
Yep.
when I look at a Magdalena and she's a cook, and she's 87 minutes over, she clocked in early with no managers present. Okay,
What is
well,
SBT? I keep seeing with the little
yeah,
trademark.
yeah. So SBT is another term that we use called shift break tracker. So
Okay.
this happens to be in a state where they aren't required to track breaks, so it always says 0 minutes. But in markets like California, where that's a really big deal, this is not only showing what their break times to make sure that they took their breaks, but in
Mm-hmm.
California, if you wanted, you could do an audit and do a break audit before somebody you don't want to do a break audit does one.
Right. Right.
And we also have the capability to make sure that no one's taking breaks during peak hours. So this gets into Flight Planner, which is the scheduler that works with these reports. But the idea is that you don't want people taking breaks when the restaurant's busiest, but it happens, and you want to be able to know when it happens. And this report provides that if it's a break type market.
Got
That
it.
was a great question. Yeah. So again, we're going through and we're looking at, who's over, just like who is it? And then, oh, well, there's no manager present. So why is somebody or how is somebody clocking in and out with no manager present. Well, in this case, Magdalena is a manager, so she probably has credentials, but is she making sure that she's clocking in early because the business really needs it, or is there something else going on? Is Magdalena like, well, maybe I need a half an hour or another hour's worth of work on my payroll? Again, you can see we're not saying, hey, Magdalena did something wrong, but these are the types of questions that start to generate just from this report. And the manager or the area manager can follow up and say, hey, tell me what happened here. And in later reports, we'll start to see the trend. So then we'll be able to look at people that are doing the same things consistently, and so maybe calling out some maybe bigger, badder actors. High deviance shifts are people that didn't necessarily work over, but they worked a very wonky set of hours within that shift. So scheduled from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., but this person clocked in at 9:25 and clocked out way early. Manager maybe did the right thing here. Hey, the business doesn't need you, so go ahead and clock out. But we also know that Magdalena was working a shift. So is she a higher rate person? Should she be the one cutting herself and letting somebody who's getting paid a lower hourly wage to stay?
Right.
So those are the types of things that operators are going to look at.
Does this pull any of that actual more the cost portion of what that labor does cost per man hour, or or sales per man hour kind of thing?
Yeah. So once we get to have this conversation with the client, we'll ask them for a blended hourly rate so that we can do a breakdown for them right in front of them.
What
it's
is
really powerful.
Yep. And then what frequency so this is where this snapshot that you're giving to the folks that are going to the RFDC, right? And then as an ongoing engagement, like how often are they seeing these? Or once probably you're going to talk about this in a little bit is the pilot component, right? Where does that take over in the manager sees this as a validation check, but then where does the rubber hit the road for the implementation part?
Yeah, so for us, we do this really just to uncover the value and really open everyone's eyes, right? It's a lot of, well, like you did earlier, it's kind of oh no moment.
Yeah.
It's amazing our CFOs that see it, they kind of fall out of their chair, and they're just stunned at how much opportunity there is. But post this, once we go into, let's say, implementing and turning it on for the locations, this messaging goes out every single day, without fail, every morning.
Yep.
So it's in the GM's hands right when they start their day. They know exactly what happened. They know who they need to call, and who they need to keep an eye on in that sense, or what other behaviors they need to coach as well too. Quite often we see people that just may not clock out, and those folks that need to be educated on the importance of clocking out. But again, it runs every single day without fail and shoots out this information so the GM can do something about it and really do something in the moment versus waiting for the end of the month or the end of the quarter to find out that you really didn't hit labor where you wanted it to. We're actually getting it below targets that you thought were even possible on a daily basis.
Is there a kind of a connector on repeat offenders or serial offenders? Like, how do I identify? God dang it, Joe keeps doing this, and I'd sure want to know.
Yeah, there is. So that we really start to get into that with the weekly reports, and I'm going to have a couple of things I want to show you on the daily, but then we'll get right into that. The other note I'll make about that daily reporting, what's really important there, is that operators know that it's very common for an area manager to call them and say, hey, how are we doing on our labor so far? We're going into weekend. And so typically what restaurants want to do is make sure not fat on labor before they go into their busiest shifts, because you don't want to run lean during your busiest shift. So getting this allows the manager to go, okay, I got to take some action here. I got to get the boat right before we get into normally the weekends, which are our busiest time. So that daily reporting serves this up in a way then a manager doesn't have to go searching for the information. And chances are they're going to know before their boss ever calls them exactly what they need to do to save labor, which is, the ideal scenario. So unplanned shifts, these are people that clocked in that were not scheduled. Or sometimes different systems have different naming conventions, and so we call that out too. But in this particular case, okay, so here's D'Angelo K, cashier, worked 5.63 hours, and they weren't scheduled. Okay, well, we see there's managers on duty, so we assume those managers called somebody in. And we can look down here at missed shifts and see, okay, so Carter was a cashier. They didn't come in, so probably Carter called out. D'Angelo came in, so that all checks out. So we can kind of check and make sure that nobody's, working shifts that they aren't supposed to work without a manager knowing. And that does happen. We call it buddy punching, where, hey, Michael, you need a few hours this week. I got the manager's code. I'll clock you in. I'll clock you out. You're all good.
Hook me up.
We'll leave it up to the managers to try and find it. So here's another piece where D'Angelo clocked in, but there were no managers present, and he was not scheduled to work. And there was no cashier that missed that shift. So we go, D'Angelo, what happened? So you can see the difference. It makes sense when D'Angelo clocked in, there were managers present, and there was a cashier that missed the shift. You can match those numbers. Now, there may be a very good reason why D'Angelo worked this shift again, but we want to be able to ask these questions, and we want to see it right away so we can fix it.
Yeah.
So, but you asked a question I think is really important, which is, you can kind of get tunnel vision and just work day to day. But what we want to do is also get into trends, kind of like, maybe I have some people that I need to talk to more than others. Maybe it's Cijoy, because I like to pick on Cijoy. Cijoy is just
the worst.
Yeah,
Worst employee ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, we go through and we have these weekly reports. And so we do a summary. It shows you how many shifts we analyze. And just a note here that, for a human to do this, you're talking about at least 8 hours of work every week and consistently. Like, you just have to be doing this kind of grind.
God, as an auditor.
So, yeah. So this is like we say GM pilot's an FP&A person for every restaurant. That's the level of detail that they're giving, and they're translating it so that the manager can use the information. So this is a breakdown of how many shifts were analyzed, and then just total of hours of unplanned time for the week. You can see, okay, so 64 from managers, 70 from team members. Well, okay, let me look at managers and go, well, you guys are getting paid the most, so I'm a little concerned about 64. And now also, why are we going 70 hours over with our team members? Who were the people that were doing the most in terms of overage? And you can just go down the list. And you can see, okay, Angel, C, 51 hours. Okay, let's just figure that out, Angel. That's a lot of hours, right?
Right.
Now, exactly.
He's sleeping there.
Yeah, and I've been through this report, so I'll tell you that one of the things that this particular restaurant is experiencing is there's just a lot of moving parts. They're doing way too much miss shifts and call this person in and have this person work. And Angel is also probably not coded correctly in the system, because Angel keeps coming in and being marked as working shifts they weren't scheduled for, but then it also shows that they were missing a shift. So this calls out when the system isn't working right. And this team probably is doing their best, but their system is broken, because anytime a manager has to move the chess pieces around this often, you're going to lose hours. You can't keep up with it, because this is just one part of what a manager has to do. So keeping up with all these moving parts is going to result in UPT. So I think this is what you were asking about, right, Michael? Yeah.
Love it.
So we can look and see. So this is what I was talking about. Angel had 6 unplanned shifts. Angel also had 6 missed shifts. So she's miscoded when she's clocking in. So it looks like she's missing the shifts that she was coded in, and then she's clocking in as at a different role for
Hmm.
51 hours. So it's really hard to keep track of Angel's hours because she's not working what was on the schedule. It's all kind of very wonky there,
So
right?
there's some fraud signatures in here we can look for too, right? Like these kind of things are where these anomalies pop. They usually start going out of control, and it starts showing itself here.
Yep. Which takes me to our monthly report. So here's a piece that I'll show you. So similar to the weekly, it's broken down the same way, except
Yep.
on a monthly piece. Now, so let's look at Les K here. So he had 36 hours of UPT. Okay. Um, so I also go down and I go, Les also had 8 unplanned shifts. I go, wow, Les. Les worked 8 shifts that he wasn't scheduled for. He's responsible for 36 hours of UPT. What's going on?
Right. Well,
David,
David's
20.
got 24. Yeah, he's screaming at me.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it may be that so let's talk about what it means in terms of right and wrong and in between.
Right.
So David may be doing the best that he can, but if he's not using the system properly, then we're not able to, really truly measure or help this restaurant write the optimized schedule. And so what this
Right.
this screams is, hey, we need to get our process together here, guys.
Right.
And
Right.
and it may be the regional manager. So this report goes up to leadership too, corporate
Yeah.
leadership. And the corporate leadership might look at this and go, hey, area manager, you need to give these guys some help. You're in
Yeah.
charge of helping give them tools.
It's almost like sandpaper. First, you start with the coarse grit and smooth it out, and then you get the fine grit sandpaper and really smooth out the schedule and get everything going right and the right habits and behaviors to drive that the right direction, right?
Right.
I have a question, which is, what are so this, let's say they look at this and they get in the rhythm of looking at this data and responding to it. What are the primary effects, benefits, and then what are some of the secondary things that happen as a result of getting this right?
Well, the first is what Cijoy mentioned before, which is just kind of like we realize we have an issue. So before this data was broken down this way, you'd have to go to all your different places to get the data, and then you'd have to be able to bring that data together in a way to help you really put this together. And that is part and parcel of the challenge that operators have, is they don't have time to go to these different spots to get this data, and so they don't really know. They get a big broad view of, oh, hey, here's how Michael, he was scheduled this many hours and he worked this many hours, and you get a green or a red. But what that doesn't do is show you, well, were there shifts in there that Michael could have done better? Just because the net is positive or negative doesn't mean you have a true account of the behavior. This gives you a true account of the behavior. And so that's the first piece.
Go ahead. Sorry. I was
No,
just getting
yeah.
excited. I had questions. Well, so I'm thinking about, I'm listening here, and I'm an operator, and sometimes, we know what we know, and then the things we don't know, we might think, it all works the same. When we used to sell inventory solutions, people go, all your stuff the same. And so when I think about this and I hear this, my devil's advocate brain goes, well, I get an actual versus theoretical report. Here's what I scheduled, and here's what I actually got, right? And so help me understand for us and also for the audience what the difference is there. Like, really, I know you're hinting at it. I just want to make sure that we're crystal clear how you're really driving this value.
Right. And this answers Chad's question too. So this is the second step. This is actionable information. So when you get an actual versus theoretical, where are you going? Where are you zeroing in on? And you're talking about inventory, where that goes is, I might know the product, but I might not know who was responsible for making that.
Or scheduled versus actual, right? Like what ends up with
schedule versus actual.
Yeah.
Where did the problem happen? Was it the schedule? Was it the team member? Or was it the manager?
Got it.
This
So you're
gives you
layering
the
in those.
ability to go through that.
Got it. Who was there? What, how long it took place? I see that now. Awesome. Thank you.
I'd add to Chad's question. One of the secondary effects we've seen is really from a HR and culture perspective. We've gotten feedback that Now that the folks that were, let's just say, misbehaving or really didn't understand, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt of how things are supposed to work, everyone's happier because now the hours are going to people that are really being productive and really being part of the team versus clowns like me that are just buddy
Oh
punching
man.
myself in.
He's still in role. You're
Yeah.
like a method
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I worked on a day that nobody else was scheduled, like good on me. I made 12 hours on a day that the building's actually closed. And
Yep.
we've seen stuff like that in real life. And it's not something that anyone would catch because it's all summed up. But once that's kind of settled in, and I go back to a GM that trained me a long time ago. He said that all I have to do is just eliminate the bad leaders in the room, and then everybody else just behaves well. And he goes, that's how I
Kind of
yeah.
funny
He
how
said
that
that's how I turn
works.
around a restaurant. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's actually
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
It's like Moneyball. You're using the data to figure
Hmm.
out who to play.
Yeah.
That's
And
exactly right.
there's a phrase too that was it's we teach people how to
Hmm.
treat us,
Yep.
right? We teach people how to treat our
Yep.
business, and so what we accept
Yep.
is what we will get. And I think this is a really smart move. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we see this report uh, play out in the most positive way, which is changes the behavior. And this, in the first 30 days of running ground control, we're
Mm-hmm.
already saving money in labor costs. Um, we saw a 1% change in the first 30, 45 days with one of our clients because they were really good at making sure that the managers were understanding the importance of the report, but there was no having to explain what it meant. And so the behavior was changed. And, look, even if people aren't, deviants like Cijoy, the
Deviant.
awareness,
Wait, let's.
it's getting
How about you?
worse.
Yeah.
Cijoy we can't
Yeah.
help him.
He,
But
first he was a clock offender. Now he's a
I'll take it.
deviant.
I'll take
yeah,
it.
I mean,
Shoe fits, man.
we don't know. But yeah, it's really about the awareness factor.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, just these. Hey, Michael, Chad, did you realize that when you're clocking out consistently 5-10 minutes late every shift, that is equating to this many in hours?
Yeah.
Look at this report. You can see it right here for this month alone. Let's pick Hiram, 22 hours.
Yeah.
So you've got to just be a little more conscious, because what that means is I can't give people the hours that they need.
Yeah.
It also means that when people want to be paid more, well, it's really hard when we're having to pay for all these overages. If everybody works what they're supposed to be working, then we can afford to be paid.
We'd hit our budget or our labor number, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Could you summarize what you found in this report and quantify the impact for the location?
In dollar amounts, I think their blended hourly, yeah. If
Ideally.
you take what they verbally told us their blended hourly rate is, again, it's UPT, not even looking at the overage cost for overtime. This was pretty much a six-figure number on the other end of it for one location.
Very nice. And if you had to summarize why they were able to save so much, what does it come down to in like a few
Visibility.
sentences? Okay.
This is visibility, and this is finally giving the restaurants all the data they need in one place to take action.
You can't improve a thing until you measure a thing, right? Love it. What else was I believe you mentioned another piece here earlier, or is there another accompanying piece that goes with this, or did we cover the whole part? I thought there was a cool name that we'd used earlier about a part of the tool. Did we cover all that?
This is aerial view, and we have two other pieces. One is Flight School, which is our transactions performance analysis. So similar to the ground control report on
Yeah.
a daily basis, our clients are getting what we call flight school, which is a report that uses transactions per person and people per hour as metrics to measure performance. So flight school. So this is a report card, same client, hot or chicken, and we use flight school to give some performance-based metrics. These are quantitative, not qualitative. So it's not, hey, I really think Michael and Chad are great guys, so I'm going to schedule them, because this is starting to get into, well, how many transactions are we doing when this team is on? And also what's impacting our transactions, so that we can understand how quickly our managers are making decisions about, should I be cutting people off the floor due to weather related events or other things. Cijoy, others to add
Yeah,
to that?
for us, it's we take in all the externals that could have impacted the building, and then one of the features
Yep.
that we're working towards with one of our clients is they have items and orders that can come in that can completely crush their performance. We call those UFOs,
Mm.
the unexpected freaky order. That could be some so UFOs like in real life are rare, but again, we want to make sure that uh
Are you talking about the school bus that shows up full of nuns? Like, what is
yeah,
this?
yep.
Like, just
Yeah,
some
like the school
clarity
bus that
there.
shows up with a bunch of hungry football players and you can't cook burgers fast
Yep.
enough. It doesn't happen often, but
Yep.
we've
Okay.
seen it all the
Yeah.
time. It happens once, and then the narrative is it happens all the time. And that's why I always have this many
Okay.
people on shift, because it happened once. But
All right.
when we start tracking UFOs,
Yeah.
we see it really doesn't happen that often, but we want to put that explainable thing right there in the timeline, so that the GM can, if the GM claims there's a UFO, you can see the data is telling you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there was a UFO at the time.
And so that people per hour are people that are on staff at that time. Is that right? It's not
That's right.
throughput.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
For this look here,
That's right.
And TX is what? Number of
transactions, yeah.
transactions? Is that okay? Yep.
And then TPP is transactions per
Right.
person. So how much is, on average, how much is everyone moving out the door during that hour?
Okay.
Mhm.
Got it. And so, yeah, I got it. So your transactions are ramping up. You have more people on staff.
Mm-hmm. And then this report starts to show you just kind of how much staff you have to transactions. And you'll see here, okay, so you're going down, you're seeing transactions per person. They're steadily going up, which is normal, right? You start to ramp up to peak hour.
Yep.
This restaurant's hitting peak hour around 12 o'clock. It starts to go down. And so far from, open till through peak hour, Michaela and Taylor can handle it.
Yep.
Then at 2 o'clock, so this particular restaurant, they have a happy hour in the midday. So they add more people to the schedule, as they should. But it's this is a rainy, this is, we've got some weather. So you start to see transactions start to peter out here. So Michaela has Becca, another manager comes in, and then they have another team member come on. Okay, so maybe you're like, okay, well, maybe we see if this weather's going to hold. But then the wind comes through and transactions are crushed. 3 transactions. Right. And then the question becomes, well, should we have reacted faster? We know we only need 2 people on, because we see this in the transactions up here that 2 people can handle up to 25, 37 transactions. And we're already down to 12, 4, 25.
Right.
We never really get up.
You should cut sooner. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this allows you to eliminate an entire person. So the other report, ground controls, help you understand fractions of an hour and how those add up. But this one's starting to help you understand, an entire person. And what we get into with this report is staggered end times. Does everybody have to come in right at 1 o'clock, or can we stagger people?
Yeah,
correct. And then what Cijoy is talking about is when we start to compare similar restaurants. They have similar transactions. Then we start asking the question about product mix. Like, well, are you running with more people because you do more grill items and so it requires more labor? Or are you just not running as efficiently as you could? Do you have more new people? So how
Yeah.
many of these folks are just getting started, so they're not producing as much?
Right. They
So
may
you
be
can
on
start
training
creating those
path and
standards.
shadowing, and yeah, they're not adding to productivity, but they're there on the dime.
Yeah. And the goal here is to start creating some standards.
Mhm.
So I can say, hey, here's a restaurant in this type of category. It's a suburban restaurant. They do about this much in transactions, this much in product mix, and this much in total sales. And I
Mm-hmm.
know in a perfect world, because I've looked at these reports and we've worked with GM Pilot, we can create a standard for what it should be in terms of staffing, and then we work off of that standard. And if there's any deviations, we can go, well, why were there deviations? Okay, well, it's because we got new people. That's one of the main reasons. It would be, okay, you hired a bunch of new people, and so you've got more people on the schedule, but we need to get that back down. So
Yep.
that's the goal, is to start creating some standardization around how different restaurants operate and what the staffing should be towards that particular restaurant's operations, which is
Makes
kind
sense.
of the goal.
And then, so then you have a the actual scheduling piece that actually marries to a back office scheduler or labor solution already, right? So, how's that work?
Yeah, so what we do here is whatever scheduling system you have, we number one,
Hmm.
we partner with so many of them that we look at the implementation first and foremost, make sure that number one, it's set up properly, you've got all the data in there that you should to get it set up well.
Yep.
And then we use it to the best of its ability, but then we add on with our own capabilities. So for example, in one of our cases with one of the companies we work with, they've got forecasting, which is fantastic, but
Hmm.
the brand is going through tons of new menu items, new people, new processes, etc. So how much they did last year in sales, they may do the same amount of sales this year, but the P mix is very different. The performance of the employees is very different. So not only do we look at historical sales to get your forecast, but we can look at recency of
Yep.
transaction volume. So when we talked about that smoothing, most things will look at sales per day. We look at sales by the minute. So then we can look at that curve, identify exactly where the humps in that curve need to be. Sometimes we think, oh,
Mm.
we've got a big lunch rush here, or we've got a big dinner rush in this location because of its geography and so on. But we found that the it's not always a nice single Gaussian distribution curve where everything looks perfect. It could be all over the
Right.
place. But we take that and we analyze that against the capacity of the people you have. We can get really wild and schedule down to the minute. Obviously, that's a little too problematic. So we can go scheduled in 15-minute increments,
Yeah.
30-minute increments, whatever our customer wants us to do. Build that schedule, put it together, and then communicate that to the GM that, hey, we built this schedule. Here's what your schedule used to look like,
Right.
which is what you see here in red. And here in green, this is the new proposed schedule. You had these people starting at this point in time. That's maybe what you had copied and pasted from your prior history. But here's the more optimized
Hmm.
view for the coming weeks based on the sales forecast and recent trends on your performance.
Mm.
Mhm.
I know when I was all doing my labor at my last company, um, kind of one of the holy grails was skills
Mhm.
based
Mhm.
scheduling. Like I can't have a
Right.
shift without without a four on it.
Mhm.
I'm a highly qualified person versus my
Yeah.
1 stars. Is there any accommodation or thought in there
Absolutely.
about
So
that?
we can accommodate really.
I thought
I
I got your
wish.
moment. Dang it!
This is this is actually where we shine. So for us, we again going back to our theme, we're trying to be the general manager's, super pilot that
Yeah,
shows up and helps, right? We're trying to enable that GM to be
yeah.
more successful than they could be without us. So the thought process is what would
Hmm.
happen if we had an FPA analyst that was completely unleashed with all the data and all the time in the world to go build an incredibly optimized schedule. So if you
Yeah.
have rules that say anyone who doesn't have a certain amount of tenure or anybody that doesn't have a certification Certifications are all really well handled by lots of software, not all, but whatever your current
Yep.
software does will exploit that to its fullest. Because remember, we are just an incredibly smart user using your existing software, but then we have the brains and
Mm.
data of things that your software may not have, and any rules that you may want to apply, such as, I always want to make sure I open with two people Monday through Saturday, and Sunday. But on
Yep.
Mondays are my cash drops, so I need to open with three, so one person can leave the building. If that's a rule you want us to use, we'll use that rule. If there's a rule of I need to always open with the manager, close with the assistant manager, and I need that to oscillate between
Hmm.
Mondays and Wednesdays so that the GM is not always missing pickup time with the kids. Again, we're trying to enable that GM to have a good quality of life and the team to perform really well and the business to have incredible results.
And you can also make sure that all the managers aren't leaving at 3 o'clock every day, right,
Yes.
Cijoy?
Yes.
Oh, really? School's
Yeah.
out for summer, and
Yeah.
it's gone. Right?
Very, very heavy dating life with some of our
Yeah.
clients. So 3 o'clock,
Oh,
it's a ghost
Yeah.
town for
And
managers.
let me ask you this
Mhm.
question, guys. So I'm going to
Mhm.
RFDC. I'm an operator. What do I have going on that would really make me a good fit for GM Pilot? Do I have one location? Do I have a couple? Like, where's the rubber really hit the road? I know this has to be valuable
Mhm.
for everybody, but the ones that really get the benefit from it am I a fine dining place? Am I table service? Am I QSR? Am I all of that? And I just to help me understand who I am. But
Yeah,
nobody's been able to do that for me my whole life, just to let you know. But yeah,
yeah. Well, if you think about what GM Pilot does and how it
yeah,
works, it really works on complexity, and it gets better as there's more labor, and it gets better as there's more to oversee. So that
mm,
speaks to more units. It's not impossible for there to be a good amount of oversight when you only have one or two units. It's when we see restaurant companies getting at 5 units, 10 units, 20 units when they really start to struggle. And there's kind of
right,
this graph of the number of units and the amount of volume. So if you have 5 full service restaurants, but they're
right,
doing 5 to 6 million a year, then there's a lot of value for GM Pilot. If there's value because it's hard to keep track of all the staff that needs to run those restaurants, but there's also value because we know that with that type of volume, there's a lot of labor savings that's sitting on the table out there. But then as you go up, for sure, once you're past 20 units, we start to really fly because there's just so many places that you have to watch. There's so many different moving pieces, and there's so much communication that has to happen on a daily basis for the manager that
yeah.
it makes it really hard to do it consistently.
Wow. Well, I think there's a lot to think about there. So it kind of as we summarize and kind of wrap, or not kind of as we wrap this part up. Um, I think it's really exciting for operators, right? Because now more than ever, what money is scarce. Everything they see is trying to compound and add more costs to the business. Not to mention compliance issues, not to mention overtime, not to mention fair work week, and all these other things that are just the pressure on these guys is enormous. I mean, there's no doubt in that, right? And so these tools are extremely valuable. So when leading up to the show, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you and make this happen? If
Mhm.
they want to go through some, this assessment and get that feedback that's going to help them, what's the best way to do that?
It's really easy. You just reach out to either me or
Mhm.
Cijoy. I'm Alonzo at gmpilot.com, and he's Cijoy at gmpilot.com. So we're right on the front end of all of this because, we're passionate. If that hasn't come across, then you should know we're very passionate about GM Pilot. And so we really want to be the first people that potential clients talk to because we're very, very excited about what GM Pilot means for all the restaurants out there.
Mhm.
Right. So they get a hold of you. You're going to send me. I'm the guy. You're going to send me something. I'm going to go into a portal and put in some information. What do I need? And I know Chad asked that briefly before, but just a reminder. So we're going to do a quick exchange of information that will give you all you need to do this.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. All you have to do is get a hold of us, like Zoe said. Also hit our website, our LinkedIn page, email us, get a hold of us. call you guys and get a hold of us, and we'll either work through the process of just giving us an account on their existing systems, and if they want to just get a spreadsheet from us, we'll shoot them a quick template. Very straightforward. One tab for historical punches,
Yep.
another tab for the actual planned schedules. Turn it over. We'll work through it, and then we'll sit down together at RFDC and walk through it.
Boom. I love it. It feels like we should make a bet, right? I bet you if you come see us at RFDC, I will save you money. And if I can't show you that, I'll give you $10 or
Easy money.
$20. Like, we're going to Vegas. You should
Easy.
make a bet with these
Easy.
guys.
Easy.
Like, really,
Easy.
you're going to Vegas. Yeah, if I can't show you the money, I'll give you $20. I bet that would get people to stop by right there. If you know,
Money.
you know.
Yeah.
Let's up the ante.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we should just get some poker chips and
Here
have
you
them
go.
ready. Here you go. Enjoy it, right? And anyways,
There you go.
hey,
Yes.
we can cut that out if you
No,
want, but I was just
it's funny.
thinking out loud as we're talking that's not a bet. You're going to Vegas. Let's make some bets.
Yep.
I like
I
that.
do like that.
I like
Yeah.
that a lot. We'll bet on ourselves. We'll bet on
Awesome.
ourselves all day long.
Awesome. Well, I think Chad and I are betting you all on you too. We believe in you. We believe in your product and what you're bringing to the world. We love stuff with value and utility all day long. So we're here to make sure this happens for you. Any last things like that you want parting thoughts?
We're looking forward to meeting people.
Cool beans. So reminder. So GM Pilot's going to be at the Restaurant Finance and Development Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. Chad, what are the dates on that? Or guys, what's the date?
Gosh, it's been coming up a lot lately.
I know, and I keep
November
forgetting.
11th through 13th.
All right, November 11th through the 13th at the Fontainebleau or the
Fontainebleau.
Fontainebleau Hotel. Yes, it's all. When you walk in the door, you have to have your pinky up, but not one, but both. Anyways, but I'm gonna get kicked out when I get there. Anyway, so the guys are gonna be there. They're gonna be around the show, the whole event. And make sure you reach out to them. Take the time because one, I think they're actually going to put their money where their mouth is on this bet thing. I couldn't get them chips, but other than that, come by, get the analysis, take a look at it. If you give Zoo some insights into it, so much better. And if you happen to find something that you really value, we can probably do this for your whole business and make sure that it is in a better place than you ever imagined. To Alonzo's point, he said earlier, money you didn't even know existed.
That's right.
I love that. All right, guys, this has been Tank GTM with a nice moment with GM Pilot. And gentlemen, thank you so much. And we hope you have a great weekend this weekend. Thanks for spending the time with us.
See you at the show, guys.
All right.
See you.